Hello, everyone. Welcome to the table. My name is Jody Heckathorn. I'm spending a few minutes with you today, talking in 2 Timothy, chapter 2, verses 1 and 2. Before we read that, I'd like to share a story with you. What God can do with an ordinary life. Have you ever been tempted to doubt the impact you can make for the kingdom? Have you ever thought to yourself, God can't use me. I'm just a simple fill in the blank. Most people have never heard of Edward Kimball, but the results of his faithfulness to God are known around the globe. A Sunday school teacher named Edward Kimball won a shoe store clerk to Jesus. That shoe store clerk's name was D.L. Moody. D.L. Moody traveled to England and awakened the heart of a young pastor. That pastor's name was F.B. Meyer. F.B. Meyer became one of the great Bible expositors, came to the USA and preached on college campuses, and was used to convert a student to Christ. That student's name was Wilbur Chapman. Wilbur Chapman attended one of Moody's meetings in Chicago and became D.L. Moody's co-worker. Wilbur Chapman employed an ex-baseball player as his assistant. Ex-baseball player's name was Billy Sunday. Billy Sunday became a great evangelist and preached in Charlotte, North Carolina at a meeting organized by the Billy Sunday Layman's Evangelistic Club, which was later renamed the Christian Businessmen's Committee, or CBMC. CBMC invited an evangelist to Charlotte. His name was Mordecai Ham. Mordecai Ham preached in the tent meeting where Billy Graham was saved. Billy Graham has proclaimed the gospel to millions around the globe, and many lives have been changed forever. Just an example of how someone can use a simple Sunday school teacher by the name of Edward Kimball, to make just a phenomenal impact in the world as we know it today. How many millions of lives have been touched by Billy Graham? So having that in thought, or in the back of our minds, I want to go into 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 and 2. I will read them, and then we'll go back and talk about each individual verse. Here we go. Timothy, my dear son, be strong through the grace that God gives you in Christ Jesus. Verse 2, you have heard me teach things that have been confirmed by many reliable witnesses. Now teach these truths to other trustworthy people who will be able to pass them on to others. So going back to verse 1, I will read that again, just that one alone. Timothy, my dear son, be strong, or constantly strengthened through the grace that God gives you in Christ Jesus. Three main points I want to hit here about being strong. First one, this was an important encouragement. Paul knew that Timothy would need strength and endurance to fulfill the calling God gave him. This was one of 25 times that Paul encouraged Timothy to be strong and endure in his work in Ephesus. Perhaps Timothy was naturally timid and easily discouraged. Or perhaps he was a man of normal courage who had great responsibilities. He needed to be told often to be strong. We should also remind ourselves regularly to be strong as we live our lives day to day. Second point about being strong. God is always there to give us strength. Isaiah chapter 40, verses 29 and 31 say this. He gives power to the weak, and to those who have no might, he increases strength. Also, that those that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. However, we must receive this strength. Therefore, Paul had to encourage Timothy to be strong. God makes the resource of his strength available to us. For example, Ephesians 6 and 10. Be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Yet it does not come as we sit back passively and suppose that God will simply pour it into us. He brings his strength to us as we seek him and rely on him instead of our own strength. The last point about being strong is in the grace that God gives you in Christ Jesus. Paul told Timothy to be a specific way to be strong. That is, to be strong in the grace that is in Christ Jesus. This strength in grace is essential for a strong Christian life. Grace here has its simplest theological meaning as the divine help, the unmerited gift of assistance that comes from God. Resting in this grace, the unmerited favor of God towards us that are in Christ Jesus, gives us confidence and boldness we could never have on our own. There is nothing that makes us as strong as saying, I am a child of God in Jesus Christ, and I have the love and favor of God even though I don't deserve it. This is the strength that comes by grace. Paul knew what it was like to receive the strength of God's grace, as he explained in 2 Corinthians 12, 9 and 10. And he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. The Lord said that to him. For my strength is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, most gladly I would rather boast in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. He could encourage Timothy like this from his own personal life experience of being strengthened by the Lord himself. Okay, that's verse 1. Now let's move to verse 2. I will read that again. You have heard me teach things that have been confirmed by many reliable witnesses. Now teach these truths to other trustworthy people who will be able to pass them on to others. 3 points here. Number 1, the things that you have heard from me among many witnesses, the first part of that verse. Paul reminded Timothy of the body of truth that he had heard from the apostle in the presence of many others. Certainly, Timothy heard many Bible lessons from Paul, and he shared much time with the apostle in a personal discipleship. The second part of that verse, teach or entrust these truths to other trustworthy people. God gave ministry to Timothy not for him to keep to himself, but for him to pass on to others. An essential part of this work as a pastor or anyone who's pouring into someone is to pour into others what God has poured into them themselves. Timothy was not to teach others his own particular ideas or theories, but simple apostolic doctrine and example. In other words, the things that you have heard from me that Paul told him. What Paul poured into him, he was responsible for pouring into others, much like it is for us today. When Timothy looked for those whom he could pour apostolic doctrine and practice into, he was to look for the quality of faithfulness. He didn't need to find smart men, popular men, strong men, easy men, perfect men, or good-looking men. Paul told him to look for faithfulness or trustworthy men. The last part of verse 2, who will be able to pass them on to others. The job of training leaders was so important that it could not be restricted to Timothy alone. Those whom he had trained must also be given the job to teach others also. We're all responsible for passing along what God's given us, the lessons he's taught us, the way he's shaped our lives, the way he has made us who we are. We are responsible for moving that along to someone else. It's all of our responsibilities to share that. Paul was a mentor to Timothy and no doubt many others. It is our job, all of us, to pour into young Timothys. What young Timothys need today is personal mentoring, but not merely mentoring in the sense of giving information and offering guidance. Too often that becomes a means of control and the reproduction of ourselves and others, accompanied by our agendas and opinions. We may think we have discipled or mentored a person when they adopt our look on things, pray like we do, look like we do, act like we do, etc. That is not the way it needs to be. That's not what Christian discipling and mentoring is all about. To mentor a Timothy means to be available, just to be available, to spend time with that person. Seek to facilitate rather than control the use of that person's distinctive gifts. An athlete runs the race alone, but does so after many months and perhaps years of training and encouragement. And not only the coach, but other family and friends may have had a part in that encouragement along the way. In Paul, Timothy had a person who was close to him, who listened and understood him, who recognized his individual giftedness, and who had confidence in him. It does not matter how old you are, whether you feel qualified or not. Every one of us can mentor someone. Every one of us can do this. Or be a part of a life group where members sharpen each other. That's why we push life groups so heavily. It helps you grow as a Christian, and as you're sharpening your fellow life group members, everybody wins. Everybody grows as a result of those exchanges. I challenge you to be proactive in finding your life group, or I call it your tribe, where you can be a part of a group growing together. Life is just more fun and enjoyable when you have a community you can share life's journey with. If you choose to find an individual you can mentor, I promise you, you will grow just as much, if not more, than the person you are mentoring. Will you step out of the boat, so to speak, and accept the challenge to find someone that you can sharpen? Will you reach out to someone, perhaps in your own age bracket, to form a friendship with? Will you be available to mentor or be a part of someone's spiritual growth, like Edward Kimball, D.L. Moody, F.B. Meyer, Wilbur Chapman, Billy Sunday, Mordecai Ham, or Billy Graham? You never know how your deposits and your contributions into someone's life will manifest itself down, maybe even generations down the road. They may touch people you would never see or be a part of your circle. But when they touch people, it becomes this far-reaching influence. You might be holding their newborn baby in the nursery while they're getting touched in the service by a message from Pastor Rick, and that changes their life forever. They go on to do great things for the kingdom. We all have a part to play. We all have things we can contribute. So we may not be a Billy Sunday or a Billy Graham or think we can do anything, but I'm telling you, every effort is important. Everything we do for the kingdom matters. And I encourage you to not be timid, but to reach out. Find someone that you can be a friend with, that you can be a mentor to, or just have a relationship with. We all need that sharpening. Iron sharpens iron. Remember, in closing, number one, be strong. Let's continue to be strong. Keep our eyes on the Lord. And number two, be ready to teach God's truth to trustworthy people. Future generations will be impacted by what we do today. Thank you for joining me today. Hope you have a great week. Hopefully we'll see you Sunday. Be blessed.